In the vast, sprawling wilderness of Alaska, where the mountains touch the sky and the forests whispered ancient secrets, lived a man named Elias. He was an artist and a recluse, drawn to this remote corner of the world by a quiet sorrow. His cabin, nestled deep among the pines, was a sanctuary. Here, with only his canvas and the endless expanse of nature for company, he thought he'd found peace. A silence that for a long time felt like a balm for everything he'd lost. He was wrong. He just didn't know it yet. Late autumn here is fleeting. One day the air is crisp, the next the world turns hostile. A bitter wind began to whip through the trees, a prelude to what was coming. Elias watched from his window as the first fogs of snow began to fall, swirling into a whiteout. He moved with practiced efficiency, chopping extra firewood, securing the shutters, preparing for the long, isolating embrace of winter. The light outside dimmed quickly, swallowing the landscape in a blanket of white. Inside, the crackling fire offered little comfort against the deepening chill that seeped into the very bones of the cabin. Elias sat by the hearth, trying to lose himself in a book, but the wind outside seemed to carry a strange, faint sound. A whimper, barely audible above the howling gale. He dismissed it at first, attributing it to the eerie sounds of the blizzard. But then it came again, louder this time, a distinct plea. He hesitated, a ripple of unease. Then curiosity. Grabbing his heavy coat and a powerful flashlight, he moved towards the door. The moment he pushed open the cabin door, the blizzard roared in, a violent, icy assault. He braced himself, sweeping the flashlight beam through the swirling snow. And then he saw them, huddled against a snowdrift, a medium-sized dog shivering uncontrollably, her fur matted with ice and dirt. She looked up, her eyes wide and pleading, not wild, but utterly broken. And beneath her, barely visible, were tiny, squirming bundles of fur. Puppies, barely more than newborns, nestled against their mother, trying desperately to find warmth where there was none. His first instinct was caution. Wild animals, unpredictable in the wilderness. But her eyes, they weren't the eyes of a predator. They were the eyes of a mother, desperate and defeated. He watched as she nudged one of her puppies, a silent urging for it to survive. In that moment, something shifted within Elias. The indifference he'd cultivated began to crack. He approached slowly, speaking in a soft, low voice, his words swallowed by the wind. The mother dog watched him, trembling but making no move to flee. Gently, he scooped up the smallest puppy, then another. The mother, seeing her babies safe, pushed herself up, limping badly, and followed him into the warmth of the cabin. The heavy door swung shut, sealing them off from the merciless storm and plunging them into a shared, uncertain future. Inside, the warmth of the fire was an immediate comfort. The mother dog, utterly exhausted, collapsed onto the makeshift bed Elias had quickly prepared with blankets and old towels. Her puppies immediately sought her warmth, finding comfort at her belly. Elias, however, immediately noticed the deep gash on her front leg, crusted with ice and grime. She was so thin, every rib showing, a testament to the harsh existence she'd endured. But her focus remained solely on her pups, an unwavering mother's instinct. He brought her a bowl of water, which she lapped up thirstily, then some dried meat, which she devoured with an almost alarming speed. Carefully, Elias set to work on her wound. He warmed water, gently cleaning the gash, watching as the dirt and ice gave way to raw, red flesh. She whimpered softly, but didn't resist, as if understanding his intent. He bandaged it as best he could with strips of clean cloth. It was a small act, but in that quiet cabin, under the glow of the firelight, it felt profound. He prepared a warm, gruel-like meal for her, which she devoured ravenously, her strength slowly beginning to return. The puppies, eyes still closed, remained tiny, vulnerable bundles, completely dependent on their resilient mother, and now on him. Days bled into weeks, and a new rhythm settled into Elias's solitary life. Sleep became a luxury, punctuated by hourly checks on the tiny bundles, ensuring they were warm, fed, and safe. It was an exhaustion he hadn't known before, but it was a good kind of exhaustion, one that filled his days with purpose. He devoured old books on puppy care, making calls on his satellite phone to glean advice. Desperate to give them the best chance, he built a small, cozy pen by the fire, a secure haven for the growing litter. Each day brought small victories, a healed wound, a contented sigh, a tiny tremor of life in the smallest pup. Then came the day their eyes opened, tiny, curious slits that slowly widened to reveal the world. Soon, they were no longer just bundles of fur. They were individual personalities, toddling, stumbling, then playing. The mother dog, whom Elias tentatively named Luna for her pale fur and watchful moon-like eyes, steadily gained weight, her fur regaining its sheen. Her wound healed, and her trust in Elias deepened. She would nudge his hand for affection, rest her head on his lap as he painted, and Elias, he found himself smiling, truly smiling, for the first time in what felt like forever. A genuine, unburdened smile as a puppy gnawed on his shoelaces or curled up on his chest. His paintings, once stark and cold, began to incorporate warmer colours, softer lines. They filled a space he didn't even realise was empty. Their joy was infectious. His solitude, it didn't feel so complete anymore. One crisp morning, as Elias gently groomed Luna, his fingers brushed against something on her collar. A small, faded metal tag, almost unreadable from years of wear. He squinted, trying to decipher the worn inscription. It was a phone number, partially scratched, and beneath it, a name. Luna. A sudden pang of sadness hit him. She wasn't just a stray. She had a name. She had a home. Someone was looking for her. He tried calling the number on his satellite phone. But it was out of service. A wave of both comfort and burden washed over him. The thought that she was someone's lost companion was both hopeful and heartbreaking. He couldn't just keep them. Not truly. Elias decided he had to try. Using his limited internet access, a luxury in this remote location, he meticulously searched local lost pet forums, animal shelters, and community boards. He drafted a detailed description of Luna and her 5 thriving puppies, along with a blurred photo, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, would recognize her. He didn't expect much, but the thought of a reunion, even one that would inevitably lead to a bittersweet goodbye, spurred him on. Weeks later, the puppies were no longer tiny bundles. They were playful, rambunctious balls of fur, tumbling over each other, nipping at Elias's fingers, filling the cabin with joyful chaos. Elias was on the floor, laughing as one of them tried to chew his beard, when a sudden, distinct knock echoed through the cabin. A firm but not aggressive knock. Elias froze, utterly surprised. Visitors were a rarity, especially in this remote wilderness, and certainly not a polite knock. He slowly pushed himself up, a ripple of unease turning into a strange anticipation as he cautiously approached the door. He opened the door a crack. Standing there, bundled in winter gear, was a young woman. Her face was tired, etched with worry, but alight with a desperate hope. She held up a crumpled, worn flyer, a picture of a dog that looked strikingly like Luna. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I know this is a long shot, but I saw your post online. Have you seen this dog? Her name is Luna." Before Elias could even answer, Luna, hearing her name, pushed past him, whimpering with an almost human excitement, and bounded towards the woman. The woman dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face, embracing Luna in a tight, desperate hug. It was like watching a ghost come to life. The missing piece of a puzzle Elias didn't even know he was solving. Their reunion was immediate, undeniable, and profoundly moving. Inside the cabin, warmth and relief filled the air. The young woman, Maya, explained her story, her voice still thick with emotion. Luna was her beloved companion, her shadow, lost during a sudden severe storm months ago while they were hiking deep in the backcountry. Maya had never given up hope, tirelessly searching, putting up flyers, contacting every shelter, every local community group. She showed Elias faded photos of Luna from when she was younger, confirming it was undeniably the same dog. Her eyes fell upon the 5 thriving puppies, and she gasped, overwhelmed with a joy and relief that was almost tangible. Her family had expanded in the most miraculous way. Elias felt a deep, almost physical pang of sadness. He'd grown incredibly attached to Luna and her spirited pups. They had breathed life back into his solitary existence. He knew, logically, that they belonged with Maya, that this was their true family. But the thought of his cabin becoming empty again, of the silence returning, was a painful prospect. He looked from the playful puppies to the now contented Luna resting her head on Maya's lap, then to Maya's radiant, hopeful face. The bittersweet truth settled in. They were meant for a life beyond his isolated cabin. Maya, seeing the small, still vulnerable puppies, realized they were too young for the long, arduous journey back to her home. Luna, too, needed more time to fully recover from her ordeal, and her healing leg. They made a plan. Luna and the puppies would stay with Elias for a few more weeks, until the puppies were fully weaned and strong enough to travel. Maya, undeterred by the distance, promised to make frequent, difficult trips, bringing supplies and helping with the care. It was a temporary reprieve for Elias, a few more precious weeks with his unexpected family. Just as the puppies were nearing weaning age, strong and boisterous, a new, unprecedented blizzard descended upon the wilderness. It was worse than the first, a true white apocalypse. The cabin became utterly isolated, swallowed by immense snowdrifts. A massive tree, weighted by ice, crashed down, blocking the only access road. Food supplies, carefully rationed, began to dwindle rapidly. Maya, already on her way back to the cabin, became stuck in town, unable to reach them. Elias and the dogs were truly cut off, facing a threat far greater than mere discomfort. This was about survival. The wilderness had given them to him, and now it threatened to take them away again. Elias tried. He used his axe, his shovel, his bare hands to clear the road. But the snow was relentless, the fallen tree insurmountable. It was impossible alone. He carefully rationed the remaining food, giving the bulk to Luna and the growing pups. Luna, sensing the escalating danger, became even more fiercely protective of her litter, her eyes constantly on Elias, as if urging him to act. He knew they couldn't stay indefinitely. There was only one option left. He had to try to get them out, to brave the treacherous wilderness once more. With grim determination, Elias bundled the 5 squirming puppies into a sturdy backpack, ensuring they were warm and secure against his back. Luna, her leg fully healed now, walked close by his side, her gaze fixed on him. He strapped on his snowshoes, each step an effort as he navigated the deep, unbroken snow and treacherous, hidden terrain. He slipped, he fell, the biting wind tore at his face, but he always got back up. His muscles screamed, his lungs burned, but the weight on his back, The loyal companion at his side fueled him. Failure wasn't an option, not for them. Hours blurred into an eternity of struggle. The cold was a constant, gnawing presence. Just as his strength began to wane, just as the thought of giving up flickered, a faint light appeared in the distance. A remote ranger station, or a small, isolated outpost, a beacon of hope in the vast, unforgiving landscape. He pushed harder, every muscle screaming in protest, driven by the sheer will to survive and protect the lives entrusted to him. He stumbled, half collapsed, into the outpost. The ranger, a gruff but kind man, immediately moved to help him, eyes widening at the sight of the bundled puppies and the exhausted Luna. Relief washed over Elias, so profound it almost buckled his knees. And then, as if by another miracle, Maya arrived. The ranger had alerted her to Elias's struggle, and she had driven as far as she could, then hiked the rest of the way. She rushed to Elias, tears streaming down her face. Embracing him, then Luna, her cries of relief echoing through the small station. The puppies, safe and sound, stirred in the backpack, unaware of the incredible journey they'd had just completed. Maya had already contacted Dr. Evans at the local animal rescue, their next haven. At the Animal Rescue Centre, the atmosphere was one of quiet care and gentle compassion. Dr. Evans, a kind-faced veterinarian, meticulously examined Luna and her puppies, confirming they were all healthy, strong, and remarkably resilient after their ordeal. Maya watched, tears of gratitude in her eyes, as she made the final arrangements for Luna's return home. It was the beginning of a new chapter for all of them. Maya then revealed a beautiful plan. She had found loving homes for each of the 5 puppies, with trusted friends and family members who've been following Luna's incredible story. Short, heartwarming videos and photos began to arrive, showing the puppies, now playful and thriving, in their new, happy environments. Elias watched each one, a quiet joy settling in his heart. It was hard to say goodbye, but seeing them go to loving homes, knowing they were cherished and safe, that was the greatest reward. His purpose had been fulfilled. Elias eventually returned to his cabin. It was quiet again, yes, but it was no longer empty. The silence was different now. It was a silence filled with echoes of barks, the warmth of companionship, and the lingering presence of the lives he had touched. He looked at his previous paintings, once stark and cold, then turned to a new canvas. This time, his brushstrokes were vibrant, full of life, depicting a home with a warm glow and the joyous figures of dogs. He wasn't painting isolated landscapes anymore. He was painting connection. Regular updates from Maya, photos and videos of Luna thriving, the puppies growing, were cherished moments that broke through his solitude. They had taught him that even in the deepest solitude, there's always room for connection. Months passed, and spring, vibrant and full of promise, finally arrived. Elias was outside his cabin, not lost in thought, but engaged in a new project, building a sturdy, beautiful doghouse, even though he had no dog of his own now. He looked out at the wilderness, but his gaze was softer, more welcoming. Then Maya arrived. She brought more updates, more stories, and perhaps even one of the now-grown puppies for a joyful visit. Elias was no longer a recluse. His door was open, both literally and figuratively. He had found a new purpose, a deeper understanding of himself and his place in the world. Sometimes the greatest gifts come in the most unexpected packages. They came in a blizzard, shivering and desperate, and they brought him back to life. His solitude wasn't broken. It was simply expanded, and he wouldn't have it any other way.